No, that's a Screencast-O-Matic. I think it's cheaper. That's that one. So how does this work? The secure ID. Well, let's say that you are at a remote location. Okay? And this is your company. Well, the company is going to have usually what's called a RAS server. RAS. It's going to be a remote access. And what that does is that allows us to, from a remote location, be able to remote desktop into a domain, into a company domain. But we're forgetting something here. What are we forgetting? Usually we will need to have some sort of secure tunnel between us and that RAS server, like either IPsec or a virtual private VPN. And these types of devices we call a temporal token, meaning that it's time-based, and you can barely see it right here. Barely see it, but there's two little ticks. You see that right there? I just wrote over them, so you probably don't see it now. But there's two little black ticks behind it there. Usually what we see with things like this temporal token, like this RSA Secure ID, is every 60 seconds, so there'll be 6 little ticks on it. Every 60 seconds, one of these, or it'll automatically re-provision this 6-digit code. And it's kind of neat. If you've never had it before, let's say that it just generated, you can look down at the Secure ID and immediately it'll go like this. Boom. After 10 seconds. After another 10 seconds, boom. It'll get rid of the next one. And it immediately starts to count down, so you know that, hey, I'm getting pretty close. I better hurry up. Right? I got to put that character in there before it switches, because if it switches, then you got to start over. But what this does here for us is remotely, if we want to connect to our company, then we have to provide it the IA, right? The identity and authorization. No, the identity and authentication, right? Because then we'll be authorized on the inside. So identity and authentication. And in order for us to do that, what I would do is I would try to make a connection over here with a piece of software that's running on either my laptop or my smartphone or whatever. This software will be specific to a vendor, like RSA, let's say. So this is RSA. You double click on the RSA software. This prompt comes up here. It's for you to put in your username and your password. So it's something you know, and something that you know, right? Not yet, because both of them are things that you know. So you put in your username and your password, right? And then the way that these typically work is at the end of your password, you look down at that temporal token and you see whatever that 6-digit character is right there. At the end of your password, you put in the temporal token. And what it does is it combines these two. Back here, there'll be an Active Directory, domain controller, that's supposed to say AD, that'll be underneath it here, that has your object in it. Just talked about that. So it'll go and take this and look it up in your object, and then before it comes back here, there'll be some sort of proxy like this RSA add-on right here, right? That will say, have they provided us a one-to-one match? What we have on file is what they provided us, and if so, compare this temporal token with the temporal token that I have on file here. So the RSA Secure ID server actually generates these tokens, and then these tokens will get these temporal, every 60 seconds, they'll get a pulse. Right? Every 60 seconds they'll get a pulse, they'll change. And these two are synchronized, right? This little Secure ID you have over here that's got the little numbers on it. This is synchronized with the server. And so, what's that? So, that is the trick. That literally the secret sauce. That's literally the secret sauce. And so you have, essentially what this becomes is a PKI. Right? Because this is going to be the key server right here, and it's going to issue these key fobs, what we typically call them, a temporal code token or a key fob, which is a physical piece that usually you wear around your lanyard. Anybody got parents that got them? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, yeah, it's called a key fob. You wear it around your lanyard, and so there's a little chip in here that was synced back whenever it was assigned. And that's the secret sauce, is that these things got really, really low power draw. They can last for, I think, close to 2 years, maybe even longer than that. And there's a little chip in here that was synchronized to whatever algorithm that they have, the secret sauce over there, and then it was finalized and issued to you. And once it was issued to you, now it becomes that two-factor authentication, because it's something you know and something you have. Matches the logic that's over here, and because those two are synchronized, this is able to happen. Whether or not the words that you were using is correct or not, I'm not going to argue with that. I don't know if it's an oscillator. I mean, I don't know if it's a little microcontroller inside of there, but that they've made a ton of money off of that. RSA's made a ton of money, and this is like the de facto one in all business across the world. So there's a couple of interesting points here, right? Because with this type of architecture here, where you're trying to access things remotely, at least, in this particular case, right, I said there's this remote access server that allows you to install a third party, which is this RSA Secure ID, and then you can remotely access it using this RAS server. Typically, this RAS server will use either CHAP or MS CHAP. You guessed it, this is Microsoft's version of it, of the challenge, handshake, authentication. That one will more likely. So if it's a Microsoft one, it'll probably lean something about Microsoft, but most of the time the chat will be on challenge handshake authentication protocol. And I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but things like this RSA Secure ID that control remote access uses CHAP, the Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol. Because essentially, you're trying to authenticate, it challenges, hey, give me something you got, because we already know that you know it, or maybe you don't, so give me something that you have on your person, and that's going to be this physical key. question.